Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ramban Shul. Thank you to those brave souls who came to join us in this chilly Jerusalem evening. We are live on a live feed to many sites overseas, including the JCC in Upper West Side in Manhattan, where it's even chillier than it is here. So welcome to all of you, and the evening will be conducted in English for obvious reasons. I remind you, please, not to forget to turn your telephones back on at the end of the evening. Our Rabbi, Rav Itiel Oron, was looking forward very much to participating in this function tonight, and in fact in opening the proceedings. But because of the yortzeit of his father, who passed away a year ago, he will not be able to be with us tonight. My name is Zev Zentner, and on behalf of the board of Ramban and the Rabbi, I'm honored to have been asked to open this evening. As you know, the 5th Jerusalem Biennale is currently in full swing in many sites around the city. And we are thrilled that our own Ruth Schreiber has chosen Ramban to be one of those sites. Her fascinating exhibition, Where Do Babies Come From?, is currently open in our Byzantine hall down below, and if you haven't had a chance to visit, I strongly urge that you do so. It's quite remarkable. If 30 or 40 years ago you would have asked the question, where do babies come from? It would have been considered a pretty stupid question. Everybody knows where babies come from. There was only one possibility. The stork. Yeah, right, thank you. But, however, tremendous advances in our understanding of the reproductive process and amazing technological developments have made this question far from straightforward. Since the first test tube human pregnancy was reported in 1973 by the team at Monash University in Melbourne, there's been a veritable explosion of knowledge and developments in the field of human reproduction, leading, amongst other things, to a plethora of new terms: ART, ET, IVF, ICSI, PGD, and others. However, initials aside, seriously, the incredible range of procedures has created many ethical, moral, societal, and religious issues, and it is particularly with respect to the Jewish aspect of these questions that Ruth has created her fascinating exhibition. There's probably no one more appropriate or qualified to address some of these issues than our speaker tonight. Rabbi Professor Avraham Steinberg, who is well known to many in this audience, is a pediatric neurologist, an internationally acknowledged expert on medical ethics, and an Israel Prize laureate in the field of Torah literature. Rabbi Steinberg worked and studied for many years with the late revered Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Professor Steinberg is the author of the 6-volume Encyclopedia of Medical Ethics, Medical Halacha. He's head of the Medical Ethics Unit of the Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center and co-chairman of the Israel National Council on Bioethics. The title of Professor Steinberg's address is Halachic Solutions to Medical Challenges. I have much pleasure in inviting Professor Steinberg to address us.
Thank you, my colleague from many years ago. It was a wonderful eulogy. So we are here to talk about some of the mysteries of the beginning of human beings, and it is in coordination with the exhibition that Mrs. Ruth Schreiber is part of, and really the gift of art is a gift of God, but you need motivation, you need excitement, you need enthusiasm in order to bring out the talent given to you, and I'm sure that everyone that will go through this exhibition will have great enjoyment. As we all know, fertility is a blessing. Infertility is a curse. We know from our ancient history that our mothers, the foremothers, were infertile, and they suffered greatly. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Hannah, the mother of Shmuel, the mother of Shimshon. There were many women who had difficulties to become pregnant, and only miraculously or through prayers they became pregnant. And indeed, the words of Rachel, Hava li banim v'im ayin meta anochi, is really, I think, the hallmark of what a woman feels when she can't have children, as nature supposedly should have given her this power. We find actually more on the side of the female, the sorrow, but I think that from the male side there is equally sorrow if they can't have children. I mean, it's ודבק באשתו והיו לבשר אחד. Once a couple becomes a couple, they become one unit. And if this suffers, and vice versa. So it's really a cause of suffering. It is a philosophical, ethical, and halachic debate if infertility is regarded as an illness. The same way as someone who has lehavdil cancer or heart problems, he has an insufficiency of his capability to have children, either the male or the female, and that's a form of a disease. But interestingly, are you allowed to desecrate Shabbos to treat infertility? Is it a disease in this sense that it is on the verge of pikuach nefesh? Hava li banim v'im ayin meta anochi. It's a feeling of dying. That is debatable halachically, but even if we don't accept it to this level, it is still a form of a disease, of an insufficiency of a function of part of the body, which is a very important part because it does not only serve yourself, it serves the future generations. And that's the only part that does so. So up to recently, if either a female or a male had a problem with fertility, besides prayers, there wasn't much that they could do. One option was to separate, to get divorced, and the one that can be fertile can find a spouse that with him he can have children. But that is a very cruel solution to a couple that actually lives in peace and in love, and they want to be together, and yet there is no option to have children. Halachically, in fact, after 10 years without having children, it is a cause for divorce because you have to fulfill the mitzvah of pru uvu, and if it doesn't work for 10 years, probably it won't work. And therefore, this is a solution which, as I said, is quite a cruel solution. And not many, by the way, go this direction, even though they know that this is the halacha, they can't do it because really they live in unity, they live in peace, they live in love, and that's not a good reason enough to separate. But fortunately, we live in a generation where there are solutions which were not only unheard of before, but in fact were unimaginable before, that such things can happen, and yet it happens daily. All the clinics, all the fertility clinics are full with successes of having children to couples that naturally would not have been able to have children. So usually we divide the general causes for infertility into three broad categories. One is a male cause for the infertility, another one is a female cause of infertility, and a third one is the couple's inability to have a child, where each one separately can have a child. That is more rare, and it's not always understood, but that is also an option. So let me briefly go through some of the solutions on either side, on the male side, on the female side, and what halachic and ethical problems it brings with it. Obviously, to begin with, it is good. The idea is good, the reason to do it is good, and the results can be very good. But not everything that seems good is allowed, is permissible, is ethically allowed, is halachically allowed, and therefore there are conflicts of this kind. So if we start with the male side, the male is the one that gives the 50% of the genetic material which will create the next generation, the child. His sperm contributes the 50% to the egg of the female, and in combination it creates a new entity, a new human being. So there are sometimes anatomical problems. The male cannot emit the semen correctly or to the right place or whatever anatomical reasons there are, but actually he is fertile by the fact that he has enough and good sperm. Or he may have a problem with the number of sperm that he has, or with the motility of the sperm, because without it, without a certain minimum amount or minimal power of motility, the sperm will not meet the egg in order to fertilize it. So in this case, and for that reason, artificial insemination was invented, which is collecting whatever sperm the male has, but since in a natural way there's not enough power to introduce the sperm to meet the egg, we do it mechanically. We collect the sperm and we inject it into the woman, and so the sperm can meet the egg. That is acceptable by everyone, although initially there were some poskim who disagreed with it. Because in order to obtain this semen, you have to ejaculate it. And Hotzaat Zera is a very grave sin in Jewish law. So how can you emit sperm by violating the prohibition to do so? But the clear answer is that the reason we are not allowed to emit sperm is for vain, in levatala, or lehashchata. If you want just to destroy it, or you just do it without any purpose, and purpose here is to create a child, that is what is forbidden. But if you obtain the sperm, you emit the semen for the purpose of procreation, that is exactly what you do in the natural way. So therefore, today, I don't think there's any posek who disagrees, but certainly it is well accepted that this is a permitted act. Moreover, sometimes the male has so little sperm that there might be found only 1 or 2 sperms after digging either into the testicle or to other places in order to find very few sperms, which naturally can't do anything. So there is a new technology relatively, which is called micromanipulation, where we take out not only the sperm from the male, but we take out the egg from the female as well. And then we do a little hole in the egg, and we inject the sperm, the one single sperm that we found, directly into the egg. And then this egg and the sperm fertilize, and then we can introduce it back to the woman, and it will grow to be a new human being. So these are technologies that are already well known. If it's done between husband and wife, there are no halachic questions anymore, and that is done in the right way. By the way, the idea of artificial insemination, of having created a child without direct relationship between a man and a woman. This is done without them being together. We take the sperm, we inject it, he is here and she is there. That concept, for the first time, was described in the Talmud 2,000 years ago, before anyone had even an imagination that such a thing can happen. And it's an interesting situation, which was, I assume, theoretical, although some feel that it may have been a reality. The question posed in the Gemara Chagiga is the following. As we know, Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry only a virgin. A regular Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee, but he is allowed to marry a widow. And the widow is not a virgin anymore. But a Kohen Gadol can't even that do. He needs only to marry a virgin. So the Gemara asks, what will be the halacha if a virgin is pregnant? Can the Kohen Gadol marry him? So the obvious question is, how can a pregnant woman be a virgin? The answer is that she may have been inseminated in the bath, in a bathroom. In those days, as opposed to our days that everyone has in his house his own shower and bath, there were public bathhouse, and everyone went to clean himself, either in a form of a mikveh or in a form of just taking a bath. So the situation described in the Talmud is that a male went to this bathhouse, emitted sperm into the water, a woman came after him without seeing him and without touching him, and she collected the sperm that he emitted earlier and became pregnant. In this situation, she can still be a virgin because no one touched her. So that is the situation. Can a Kohen Gadol marry such a woman? So we can say that it's just imaginary. We can say that things have happened this way. It's not the issue. The issue is that for the first time in human history, someone thought of the idea that a woman can become pregnant without direct relationship with a male. And that is what artificial insemination is in fact. So the concept is already there. So this sounds simple. But what about a situation where the husband has no sperm whatsoever? We can't find even one sperm. He is totally azoospermic. He has no sperm whatsoever. How can this couple have a child? So the only way for such a couple to have a child is to introduce donated sperm from another male into the woman. So the husband of the woman will not be the father, obviously, but the wife of the woman will have a child, and they can rear the child together, the husband as a adoptive father, and the wife as a real mother. Here, interestingly, the question is, where does this sperm come from? And there can be three options. Like everything is divided into three in the army, you know, so there are three options. One is that it comes from another Jew. Someone donated sperm, and he donated it to this couple, and the couple used it, and the child was born. Another option is that a Gentile donated this sperm. And a third option is that the sperm was taken from a bank of sperm, which is anonymous. We don't know who the donor is at all. So what would be the halachas regarding this situation? So the worst is if another Jew gives his sperm to the couple. Why? Because he is foreign to the couple, and if the woman of the couple would have had relations with this other man, other than her husband, and a child would have been born, what would be the status of the child? He would be a mamzer. which is the worst situation because there's no solution to a mamzer to get married ever. Here the question is the Jewish sperm donor other than the husband, without having relationship with the married woman, does this also create a situation of a mamzer? And as expected, there are three opinions. So one opinion says, yes, it's a mamzer. Mamzer comes from the word me'amzar, from someone foreign. And it came from someone foreign. It's not the husband. It's a foreign Jew who created a situation that a married woman became pregnant from a Jewish man other than her husband. And therefore the child is a mamzer. Another opinion is, no, in order to become a mamzer, not that this is recommended, but in order to become a mamzer, only direct relationships will create such a situation. And since here there was no direct relationship, the child is not a mamzer. And the third option is that it's a suffix. We don't know. Maybe it is a mamzer, maybe it's not. Now, if you come to think about it, the third option is the worst. Why? Because we said a mamzer cannot marry. It's not totally correct. A mamzer can marry a mamzeret. But a suffix mamzer can't marry anyone. Because if he will meet a mamzeret, maybe he's not a mamzer and he's not allowed to marry her. If he will meet a non-mamzeret, maybe he is a mamzer and he's not allowed to marry her. So that is probably the worst situation. So be it as it may, to take a donor sperm from a Jew to a married Jewish woman is forbidden. There are no options that we can allow it because it's either a mamzer or a suffix mamzer, and many opinions are like this, and that will cause a tragedy to the child once he grows up, that he will end up trying to marry, come to a rabbi or to a bezdin that has the opinion that this is a mamzer, and you close his door. What about a Gentile donor? A Gentile donor does not create mamzerus. By definition, which is a halachic definition, does make sense biologically, but halachically, a Gentile is not a father. Is not regarded as a father, and therefore he can't make mamzerus. So if a married woman had an affair with a Gentile man, the child is not a mamzer. So certainly, if it's not a direct affair, it's just a donation, then a Gentile donor does not create a mamzer, and that theoretically is permissible, and sometimes in very difficult situations, social and psychological situation, we do allow to accept a sperm donation from a Gentile man. Different is the situation when it is a single woman who wants to have a child. In her case, there's never mamzerus. Even if she has direct relationship with a Jewish male, since she is not a married woman, there won't be mamzerus. So therefore, in this condition, whether it comes from a Jewish man or a Gentile man, there won't be mamzerus. So if she's single and wants a child in this way, that is an option that will not create consequences which will be complicated. There are newer situations on this side, on the side of the male, where, for instance, a young fellow, 15, 16, 17, has cancer. And in order to treat his cancer, we have to give him chemotherapy, we have to give him radiotherapy, and we know that that will cause him infertility. So maybe he'll survive the cancer, but after he'll cured from the cancer, he will be infertile. So in order to help him, what we do routinely is we obtain sperm from the boy before he starts the treatment. We freeze the sperm, which can be kept forever viable. We give him the treatment, and if hopefully he recovers the illness, he can marry a woman, and even if he is now sterile, he can use his own sperm. Now, what happens if we did this procedure and he didn't survive? He died of his cancer. And now we have in the freezer his sperm. What is the status of the sperm? Let's say that a woman comes and says, I want to father this person, to give him a name, and to have a child from his sperm, give his name to the child born. Who will be the father of the child? Can someone become a father after he died? That is an interesting question. It has other ramifications. I don't want to go into it, Yevome and other things. That's a very complicated situation. But even more complicated are newer situations where a young person dies and he didn't think even to keep sperm. Let's say he was killed in a car accident or in a terrorist attack. He never thought about it that he's going to die and therefore he should keep sperm. What we can do today, within 24 hours after a male dies, we can still obtain sperm from him. So we can get his sperm after he died. And now we have sperm which is frozen, and a woman wants to do a favor to the grandparents, to have his parents a grandchild, and have a child with his sperm. Here, his fatherhood status is even more remote than the previous condition, because not only is he dead by the time that the woman is inseminated, but the semen wasn't even in the world when he died. Can we call some such situation a father? So this is a big debate amongst the current poskim. How do you define fatherhood in such unusual situations where we have no precedents? No one ever imagined that such a situation can occur. So there are some examples of the male side. And if you think that the male side is complicated, when you come to the female side, it's even much more complicated. And the reason is that a female, as opposed to the male, has two functions in order to have a child. A male, all he has to do is give a semen, directly, indirectly, whatever, go to Nepal for a track for 9 months, come back, and Moshe Grois, he's the father, right? Because the father is defined by the man who gave the semen. He doesn't have to do anything else to earn the title father. Whereas the mother has to give the other 50% of the genetic material, the egg, but she also has to carry the pregnancy into the liver. She can't give the egg and go away. Where will the child grow, right? And therefore, infertility in female can come from two major sources. Either she doesn't have eggs, or she doesn't have a womb. In both cases, she can't become a mother, because in order to be a mother, she needs to fulfill two parts, the genetic part and the gestational part, carrying the pregnancy and delivery. So nowadays, we have solutions to both situations. So let's say we have a woman that has no ovaries, therefore she has no eggs, but she has a good womb and a good hormonal system, and she can carry the pregnancy. How will she have a child? By an egg donation. She'll go to another woman who is willing to give of her eggs, take the sperm of the husband and fertilize the egg, introduce the fertilized egg into her womb, which is functional, and she'll have a baby. The opposite situation, let's say a woman had hysterectomy or was born without a womb, but she has ovaries and she has good eggs. So she can donate her eggs and use the sperm of the husband in order to fertilize her eggs, but we can't implant it into her because she doesn't have a womb. So we take another woman to carry the pregnancy, which is called a surrogate woman. And this surrogate woman is carrying a fertilized egg, which neither the sperm nor the egg belongs to her or to her husband. It belongs to another couple. And the child is born. So there's another way to have children. So what is the problem here? Here we have a fundamental problem of defining motherhood. We said that to define a father, there's a simple definition. Whoever gives the sperm is the father. By the way, a donor's sperm to a couple is the father of the child, not the husband. The husband has nothing to do with the child. He is the father. Why? Because by definition, whoever gave the sperm is the father. Here, we divided motherhood into two different women. One woman gives the genetic material, and another woman is carrying the baby. What constitutes motherhood? Is it the genetic part, or is it the gestational part? Without each of them, it can't happen. But now we need to know what is more important, to call who the mother. So when this technology came about, there was a debate across the board, but all the poskim who think themselves to be a poisek had to say an opinion, right? That's the nature of people. So how many solutions do you think can we offer? Well, this time we exceed the 3. There are 4 options, halachically. Okay, one option is all goes by genetics. The womb is just an incubator, not important. What is important is the genetics, so therefore the owner of the egg is the mother, and the woman who carries the pregnancy is carrying an incubator. The opposite opinion is that the most important part of motherhood is carrying the pregnancy and delivery. The egg is like a chip made in Japan. It's just something. We don't see it, we don't know it. It doesn't interest us. A third possibility is that neither is the mother. Because in order to be a mother, a woman has to fulfill both functions. You can't say that a woman is half pregnant. There's no such thing. So there's no such thing as half a mother. Either you're a mother or you're not a mother. And the fourth option is that both are mothers. Who says we have only one mother? We can have 2 mothers. And everyone is bringing proofs from all kinds of precedents to support the definition of motherhood according to what he thinks. I'll give you just one example. There are many, but I'll give you one example to what extent poskim went in order to try to find a solution. We were reading now in the Parshot HaShavua the stories of the Shvatim, of the tribes, and of Dinah and everything. So the story is, the fact, I mean, that's written, that when Rachel became pregnant for the first time, at the same time, her sister Leah was also pregnant. Leah had already 6 Shvatim, right? Rachel was going to have the first one. According to Targum Yonatan ben Uziel or other sources, Leah carried a male and Rachel carried a female. Leah made a calculation. They knew that there will be 12 tribes. If Rachel will deliver a female, she'll be left only with an option for 1 tribe to be born from her, which will be even worse than Bilhah and Zilpah, that each of them had two at least. So she prayed that the embryos will exchange, so that the female embryo in Rachel will move to Leah, and the male embryo in Leah will move to Rachel. And indeed they delivered. Rachel delivered Yosef, and Leah delivered Dinah. That was the parallel. Now, who is the mother of Yosef? The mother of Yosef is Rachel, but the egg was Leah's. So if you go by the egg, the whole miracle didn't work, because anyway it stays the mother Leah to the male. From here is a proof that you go by the gestational mother, and since the gestation happened in Rachel and she delivered a male, she is the mother. So that is a way to understand how do you define motherhood when there are such conflicting situations. Obviously, that can't come as a proof in halacha. We don't rely on Agadata and some strange Agadata. It's unbelievable such a thing can happen. Moreover, the major sources describe it differently. The major sources agree that the initial pregnancy of Leah was a male and of Rachel was a female, but the prayer helped that within each of them the gender changed, so that within Leah the male became a female and was Dinah, and within Rachel the female became a male and it was Yosef. And here has nothing to do with our question, because both the egg and the gestation was always in the same woman, in Leah and in Rachel. So that's easy to understand why she was the mother of Dinah and she was the mother of Yosef. And there are many such similar instances. I once discussed this question with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and we went over all the sources that others have proven either to this direction or to this. And he disproved all of them. He said that they don't match at all the situation that we are with at this moment. And in his opinion, and only Rav Shlomo Zalman could say such a thing, there is no solution to the question. We can't find a solution because there's no precedence. Now, it's not surprising. In Shas, we find numerous machloikes between Tanaim and Amoraim that end up with Teiku. The Gemara couldn't find a solution. Teiku stands for Tishbi Yetaretz Kushiyot Ubayot. When Mashiach will come, he'll solve the problem. So here it's Teiku. We can't find a situation. But Teiku doesn't resolve the practical problem. So what do you do? And I'll explain in a minute why is it so important to know who the mother is. It's not a theoretical question just for the sake of this lecture. It has a lot of ramifications. So like in any teiku, it depends what the source of the machloikes is. Is it a doraisa or a darabonon? Is it a gzeira? Depends on what the issue is. And we have rules how to solve situations that cannot be solved directly. And therefore, said Rav Shlomo Zalman, because we can't solve it in a direct way, we have to assume that both women are mothers, because we can't say that this is more a mother than this one, because we don't know, but only lechumra, because all issues relate to the oraita consequences. And for instance, let's say that it was an egg donation, and the woman of the couple received an egg from another woman, and she carried a pregnancy and delivered. We still say she is not the only mother, but the egg donor is also a mother. What about if the egg donor is not a Jewish woman? And since Jewishness is dependent only on the mother, the father has nothing to do with it, like with many other things, we have very little to do. So the fact that the egg donor is a non-Jewish woman, if we consider her a mother as well, then the child will need a giyur, because the child is now a goy, despite the fact that the inviting couple are both Jewish, and the inviting mother who carried the pregnancy is Jewish and delivered the baby. Yet, because we can't resolve the question whether she is really the mother and not the other one, so there should be a giyur l'chumra. And the same thing would be vice versa. Let's say in the couple the woman has eggs, but she needs a surrogate, and she hires a non-Jewish surrogate, and now a baby is born. Maybe the surrogate now is the mother. And if she is the mother, the child is a goy. And if the child is a goy, he needs a giyur. So in both cases, he will need a giyur. Let's say that there will come up an issue of inheritance. The child will want to inherit after one or both these women die. Who will he inherit? Depends who his mother is, right? But if we say that both are mothers lechumra, he can't inherit any of them. Because if he will come to his siblings from woman A, they'll tell him, no, the other one is your mother, so you can't take our money. And if he will go to the siblings of that woman, they'll say, no, this one is the woman. So in this case, the chumrah will be that he can't inherit any of them. And most importantly, we are not allowed to marry our siblings, right? So if two women are involved in creating a child, one is a surrogate and one is an egg donor, this child will not be allowed to marry either sibling from either mother, because maybe this is his mother or maybe this is his mother, and then he's marrying half a sister, which his children will become mamzerim. So therefore he can't marry them. So that's important to know. And there are many other ramifications to this decision that it is that both are considered mothers lechumra. So these are some of the complicating situations where we face in the beginning of life, when we talk about the sperm, the egg, and the womb, which are the parts that create a child. And finally, let me touch about a second step, and that is a baby born can be affected seriously by a genetic disease. So let's say that the father and the mother are carriers of Tay-Sachs gene, or cystic fibrosis, or neurofibromatosis, or many other thousands of genetic diseases. And it depends, without going into the details, if the gene is a dominant one or recessive one. The result will be that either 50% of the children will be affected with the disease or 25% will be affected, but there will be a serious disease on the offspring, or some of them. So up to recently, what could a couple do that knows that they are carrying such genes in order to avoid the birth of a child that will suffer all his life from very serious diseases? So the only way was to take the chance, become pregnant, test the fetus in utero, either by ultrasound or by amniocentesis, or it doesn't matter by what way, and find out if this fetus is affected or not. If we find out that he is not affected, so we lucked out, everything is okay. But what happens if he is affected? So the only way for him not to be born with a terrible disease is to abort. But abortion is not a simple matter in Jewish law. Not always is it allowed, not by all. It's very complicated. So there is now a new technique that enables halachically to avoid the birth of a genetically sick child from parents who have a genetic disease. And that is called PGD, or pre-implantation genetic testing or diagnosis. And it is done in the following way. Despite the fact that the couple is fertile, they can have children in a normal way. But if they'll do it, 50 or 25% of their children will be very sick. So we use IVF technology, which is we take eggs from the mother and sperm from the father, and we fertilize all of them in the lab. And let's say we obtain 15 eggs, and we fertilized all the 15. We let them divide several times, and we get several cells per fertilized egg. We can take out one cell from each of the fertilized eggs and test this cell for the existence of the gene that we know that the parents are carrying. The precondition is that we have to know what the gene is, otherwise we don't know what to look for. But in most cases we can detect it. So we look in this single cell whether the gene is there or not. If the gene is not there, then the gene will not be in any of the cells, and we can safely introduce this fertilized egg to the mother and tell her 100% the child will not have the disease that you have. Usually mothers are not satisfied with this. They want to know that it will be 100% perfect child. But that we can't test. That is not something that we can assure. But we can assure that the disease will not be there. On the other hand, if we tested this single cell and we found the gene in this cell, it means that this whole fertilized egg, if introduced to the mother, will be 100% sick with the disease. Not 50%, not 25%, because now we know for sure that this is the sick egg. So obviously no one in his right mind will introduce such an egg to a woman. So that is called PGD. We do it all the time now, and for hundreds of diseases that we know to identify the gene, and it is permissible halachically. I won't go into the halachic questions that preceded the discussion whether it should be allowed or not, but bottom line is that this is a permissible situation. Moreover, this allows us to discard, to throw away the fertilized egg that is sick, because we don't want any mistakes that someone by mistake will take it and implant it. And the idea behind it is that a fertilized egg prior to implantation, when it's only sitting in the lab, is not regarded as a human being. And therefore it's just a part of a human being, like a skin, so you can get rid of it if you want to get rid. And moreover, we can research on such fertilized eggs, and the major research now done is to produce stem cell research, which is another whole discussion which we don't have time to go into, but that is also permissible based on the same concept, that the fertilized egg which is not implanted is not a human being. Some add another condition, and it is that not only isn't it implanted, but it will never be implanted. So it doesn't have even the potential to become a human being, because if it's not implanted, nothing will happen of it. So certainly if it's a sick egg, no one will ever take it, so therefore it is regarded as outside the womb prior to implantation and never be implanted, so it doesn't have even the potential to become a human being, and therefore halachically it can be discarded. By the way, that is in strong opposition to the Catholics. According to the Catholics, the definition of the beginning of a human being is at conception. And it doesn't matter where the conception happened. It can be in a petri dish, it can be in the womb, it can be on the moon, it doesn't matter. So for them, a fertilized egg is a whole human being. And if you throw it away, you killed a human being. So they don't allow PGD, IVF, all these procedures are not allowed, because by definition some of them are getting rid of, and for them it is an issue of murder. So we don't hold this definition, and therefore, from our point of view, that is an excellent solution. So these were just a few examples on where we stand with the new fertility technologies, the good that it brings, the questions that it's had, the unresolved questions, and how we resolve them nowadays. Thank you.
If there are any brief questions, Rabbi Steinberg will be happy to address them. Oh.
Would you please say something about mitochondrial DNA in this context?
Yeah. Okay, so mitochondria are little organelles that are within cells. Each cell has a few mitochondria. Some have more, some have less. There are a few mitochondria that sit in the cell. The function of the mitochondria, which are particles of DNA, particle of genetic material, the function that we know as of now is to be sort of the powerhouse of the cell, to introduce the energy that the cell needs in order to be alive, to do the metabolism that it needs in order to survive. Now, there are diseases which are fixed to the mitochondria, not to the nucleus, not to the major DNA collection, which is the nucleus, which has about 99% of the DNA. But in the 1% of the DNA in the mitochondria, there are changes that cause severe diseases. So there is now a technology available to do the following. This woman who has a normal egg, a normal DNA in her nucleus, but has an abnormal mitochondria, we take her egg out and we take the nucleus out from the egg and we throw away the mitochondria and the rest of the egg. We take an egg from another woman who has normal mitochondria. We take out her nucleus and we throw away the nucleus. And we implant the nucleus of the woman who wants a child without a mitochondrial disease into the cytoplasm with the mitochondria which are healthy. And now we have a new egg that has the most genetic material from the woman who wants the child. So her child will be 99% genetically hers, with perhaps 1% of genetic material from a different woman, but he'll be healthy. So here the question was raised, who is the mother in this case? Does it change the motherhood definition because a 1% of mitochondria came from a different woman? So now we might have three women, a donor and a mitochondrial donor and a surrogate woman. We can have a whole mixture of women. That is still debatable whether this mitochondria material creates a new motherhood. But I think that most have accepted, and that was my opinion to begin with, that that doesn't create a motherhood definition. Why? Because motherhood and fatherhood are characteristics that are human characteristics. These come only from the major DNA in the nucleus. As I said, the mitochondria's function is just to be a powerhouse. It's just a machine. It doesn't add to the character of the human being at all. So therefore, it shouldn't be regarded as another mother. Same as if someone gets a heart transplant. Would we say that the person from whom the heart came is now another father or another mother of this person? Without the heart, he can't live. So he made something for him to survive. But it has nothing to do with father-motherhood. It has to do with the survival. So the mitochondria, to me, is like implanting a heart or a liver, so we're implanting a mitochondria. But that is not similar to the material that creates the definition of fatherhood, motherhood, and therefore it is not, shouldn't be regarded as another mother.
I'm very concerned and would like to find someone who will come forward and give the stock, because I've heard it's ridiculous for married women to be able to become surrogates.
You mean a married woman, a Jewish married woman, who wants to be a surrogate for another couple, right? So I'll give you the general outlook. Each case has to be discussed by its own merits. The general outlook of most of the poskim is, although I think now it's a little bit changing, is that we shouldn't mix. Even a couple who can't have children and he needs either an egg donation or a surrogate woman or a sperm donation, as long as it is a foreign material to the couple, it's preferable not to be involved with it, because it has all kinds of questions. As I stated, there are many questions. But the act per se has no halachic problem with it. The married woman who gets a fertilized egg, she doesn't get sperm or egg. She gets a fertilized egg. That's a new entity. That, according to most poskim, has nothing to do with mamzerus. So even if she is a married woman, if she would have taken a sperm from another man, we said it might be that the child will be a mamzer. But to take a fertilized egg, which is already a new entity, a new unit, that doesn't create mamzerut. So there is no halachic problem with it. But it is not the right way to mix so many parties, and we didn't solve the problem who the mother is. So this woman who becomes a surrogate may have responsibilities of a mother for she doesn't want it. She just does it a favor. She wants to get out of the picture and forget about me, right? And it's not so simple. So therefore, as we say, lechatchila, to begin with, it is not advisable. But, as I said, each case on its own merits, if it's a terrible tragedy and that's the only solution and someone wants to be good, halachically, most likely there's no problem.
Increasingly, there are unmarried women who reach an age where they want to have children. And increasingly, they're being unable to do so. What are the halachic elements?
So again, it's the same difference between the pure halacha and the social aspect of halacha. So a woman, assuming, it's not always true, and we'll come to the other side of it, but assuming that she made all efforts possible to get married. She wanted to get married. She couldn't find the right angel. He didn't come with a white horse, and she lost out. And she is now at an age that she is losing her fertility ability. So the best solution for her is to freeze eggs. She should take out her eggs around 33, 34 years of age, when the eggs are still functional and good, and she can freeze them. And even if she gets married at the age of 40 or 45, she still can have her own child with her husband that she will marry. Some single women don't want to wait so long, and they want to have a child, but they couldn't find the right husband. So they want to take sperm from a foreign donor, become pregnant, have a child as a single woman. So if we talk halachically, again, purely halachically, there's nothing wrong with it. She's not a married woman, so there's no mamzerus. She didn't have an affair. She's not a kedesha or zonah. She's a regular woman, and she has a child without a husband. Socially speaking, although it is not in vogue now to say that you have to have a man and a woman as a parent. You know, now when you donate blood, it says parent number 1, parent number 2. There's no father and mother anymore. But from our perspective, there is a father figure, there is a mother figure that's important for the well-being of the child to be raised by role models who are a male and a female. It is not, from our perspective, not currently acceptable, but from a Jewish perspective, to raise a child as a single mother is not optimal. And therefore, we're not encouraging it. We're not saying that absolutely you can't do it. If you must, you can. But it's preferable to freeze the eggs and wait for the right person and have a child in the right way with two parents raising him, a mother and a father. That is the preferable way from a Jewish point of view to have a family. Well, here both halachically, or again the social aspect of halacha, and secular ethics agree on the same thing, that you can avoid diseases, you can manipulate the fertilized egg to avoid a disease, but it is not correct to play with it to enhance characteristics. There are many reasons why not to do it, but certainly it's not acceptable, and at this moment no one is doing it. It's legally unacceptable. It's halachically not acceptable. It is only done for avoiding of diseases. Purely speaking, from a halachic point of view, the reason that we are allowed to interfere in nature in such a fundamental way, you could have said, who are you to interfere? HaKadosh Baruch Hu mix the sperm and the egg in order to create a Tay-Sachs child, and here you come and you do a kunz and he will not be created. Are you allowed to interfere in such a way? And the answer is yes, you are allowed. Why? One reason is, it says, v'rapo yerapeh. When someone damages another one, he has to pay 5 times of compensation. One is physician's fee, and as it is today, and it was all the years, physicians take a lot of money, right? So the obligation is v'rapo yerapeh. You have to pay for the physician for the treatment that you caused the injury, right? Says the Gemara in Bava Kama, mikan shenitna reshut lerofeh lerapeh. If a physician would not have been allowed to treat, why should I pay him? I injured him. He should stay that way. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. The physician treated him. You pay for him. But the Torah says, no, you, the injurer, pays. So the question is, why do we need a permission for a physician to heal? What was the Havamina? He shouldn't. Says Rashi, we could have thought that since HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to be sick, who are you, human being, that goes against the wish of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to say, and you are treating him and curing him? So comes the Torah and says, no, it's okay. V'rapo yerapeh, you can treat him. I don't want to go into the whole philosophy, why is it so and why wouldn't we think so, but bottom line is that the permission to interfere with nature is to heal. If someone is sick and suffering, we physicians have the permission to help him. But just to make him with blue eyes or with blonde hairs or taller or stronger, that is not in our power to do. That is not where we have any permission to interfere with nature.
When you speak about infertility for couples and especially for women,
Well, I know that currently everyone is in the mode, which I think is in general positive, not to use terms that are insulting. We don't talk about a mentally retarded one, we talk about someone who is disabled, or maybe disabled is already politically incorrect today, and there's another term. So the term is important, but the essence is what we are talking about. We are talking about the situation of infertility. You want to say fertility problems, it's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. But I think it's only politically correct. It's not fundamental. It's not inherent in the discussion. The fact is that this couple is infertile. What can we do? It's a fact. Now, if they feel insulted by calling them infertile, you can say they have fertility problems, which is a nice way, and I don't see any objection. But I don't think we have to go to the nth degree of using terminologies that every day change. The Negroes are not allowed to be called Negroes. They have to be called Afro-Americans, or maybe this is today incorrect, and it changes all the time. I have no intention to insult someone that I call him a Negro, unless there is something behind it that is insulting, but it's not my intention. So I am fine with new terminologies when it serves a good purpose, but I'm not so impressed with the need to do it.
Is there perhaps one last question?
Yeah, when we talk about treating genetic diseases, you mostly talk about things in the here and the now, mostly childhood diseases. But what if you're dealing with something like Alzheimer's disease, or development of kidney failure of an elder at an advanced age, or cancer at an advanced age? Is there any difference in any of these?
Yeah. So that is something that is debatable both halachically and in the ethics world. The most frequently discussed situation is the BRCA gene. The BRCA gene causes, depending if type 1, type 2, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, which develops, not in all cases, but in most, around the age of 40, 45. Now, if you can identify, and you can, the BRCA gene in a fertilized egg, and you say, let's discard it, because in 40 years, if I'm implanting it, this person will suffer from cancer. But 40 years, she or he, it can be in a male too, but usually we discuss it with females, she had wonderful life. She may have contributed to the degree that she got the Nobel Prize. And then she got cancer at an earlier age than the regular. Is it justified not to create this person because at a later age there'll be a problem? Now, there are diseases that if they develop in the later age, they are incurable, such as Huntington's disease or many other of this kind. BRCA gene can be treatable. It can be either treatable by a preventive measure, by mastectomy or forectomy at the age, at the right age, and then this female will live until 120, not only until 40. So why not create her to begin with? Because she might at certain early stage develop a serious disease, which might be preventable at that time, and maybe in 40 years it might be even cured, and who knows what will happen during these days. So everyone agrees that if it is an incurable disease, which not necessarily starts right away after birth, but after a few years, then it is justified not to create this person, because although he may have a few good years, he'll run into a difficult time that will be incurable. But if it is curable with time, although it is difficult, here it is very debatable. Yet, halachically, most poskim hold that if the parents experience this bad thing, let's say the mother is the carrier of a BRCA gene, and she has a mother that died at the age of 30 from cancer, and a grandmother who suffered terribly at a similar age, and an aunt that is now sick that is going to die, she doesn't want to see this in her child. And she has an option. She can take another fertilized egg. Who says she has to take this fertilized egg? So if this is the feeling of the family, it can be justified. But to say a general rule, whenever you find it, don't introduce it, that is more difficult than Tay-Sachs, which occurs right away.
Rabbi Steinberg, it's been an honor for Kihilat Ramban, for the Jerusalem Biennale of Contemporary Jewish Art, and personally for Ruthie and me, that you graciously agreed to address us this evening. You triggered Ruth's curiosity about the subject when we heard your talk in the Knesset in 2016, when you chose the first entry, I think it's the first one, in the Talmudic Encyclopedia, the word Av, and revealed how many definitions there could now be, and gave us an insight into the complex halachic and ethical implications. We have been privileged to know your family for maybe more than 40 years, and the wider community has been enriched and guided by your scholarship, which you share so generously and carry so modestly. Thank you. Ruth's exhibit is open now in the Byzantine Hall downstairs and at the times posted on the notice. Thank you, everybody.